we will get started here. We have a quorum. Going to start tonight's January 18th full design review board meeting. I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Motion passes. We have some minutes to approve. We have November 16th, December 14th, January 4th, and January 11th. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Motion passes. All right. I'm looking for any general member comments tonight that do not are not in regards to any applications tonight. I don't know if anyone registered with staff to talk. If not, then I'd love to get jumping into the agenda.
Wait.
We have one?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got screwed up on my screen here. This has nothing to do with the DRB. My name is Ed Abbott. I'm chairman of the elections committee.
Great.
And I live at 2218 Wake Robin Lane. Elections committee had a meeting back on the 11th to inform potential candidates of what they have to do to become a candidate. Unfortunately, nobody showed up. So I'm here tonight to kind of make a plea to encourage you and any RA member that you may know to consider running for a seat on the board. 3 seats will be open for election on the board when voting opens this March. 1 at-large director seat, 1 Lake Ann Tall Oaks director seat, and 1 North Point district director seat. All are for 3-year terms. As you probably know, since you're members of the DRB, what I'm about to say you probably already know. So Reston Association members are elected to the board to oversee the management and operation of the association, which includes, among other things, evaluating the CEO and developing the association's strategic plan. The plan includes the review of the association's amenities, facilities, major capital projects like pool repairs and renovations, input to the Reston's development through the comprehensive plan, and setting priorities for the association's $18 million budget. Please keep in mind that candidate forms are due by the end of the day, Friday, January 28th. Information can be found on the RA website, but you can also email any questions to the elections committee at electionscommittee@reston.org. Thanks for your time. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Great. Thanks, Ed. Strongly encourage anybody to run if they're looking to volunteer and get a part of it. RAs, run all by volunteers. So besides, the staff supports us, but all the decisions are made by us as members. So it's a good thing to do. So thank you, Ed.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hopefully you guys will get a couple more people to register. All right. If that concludes members' comments, then we will jump into the agenda tonight, which we have first up is an appeal for an application for 2360 Tumbletree Way. So an appeal kind of goes, let me just lay out how kind of an appeal works. So an appeal, the appellant is going to present their case. They need to prove that a guideline was misapplied, or there's new information available that was not available at the time of the review of the application. So the appellant will talk. The original applicants will only be heard from if we accept the appeal and we have to hear the case de novo, which basically just means hear it over from the beginning. So just so everyone kind of knows the process of how that works, we'll hear only from the appellant at the beginning, and then if the appeal is granted, then we will hear the application over. So do we have the appellant for 2360 Tumbletree Way? Unmuted staff, do we have them ready?
Yes, they're unmuted.
Great. All right. Who is it? The Smalls?
Yes, that's right. So
how are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So you guys heard what I just said, but just remember, we're looking for a guideline that was misapplied or new information.
Yeah, and we have some prepared remarks we'll go through, and then we have a specific ask at the end. We'll try to be as brief and concise as we can, but we'd like to read our remarks to the DRB. I'll start off by saying we are Glenn and Kim Small. We live at 2362 Tumbletree Way. We've been here since 2007, and we are appealing that November 23rd written in concept approval for the brown pile proposal to do a whole house near gut renovation of 2360 Doubletree. We have several bases of appeal, but all of them in one way or another deal with not applying the DRB guidelines or missing or new information. From our perspective, briefly, how we see we got here, there have been two hearings, as you know, October 19th, November 16th, both resulting in an in-concept only approval for this whole house near gut renovation of a 1970s split level house, which will result in the near doubling of the size of their current home from 3,000 square feet to over 5,500 square feet, an 82% increase in overall size. This is a project that proposes to add a large second story, increase the height of the home from a current high point of 18 feet to 29 to 30 feet in height, extend the garage 8 feet forward toward the street, add a massive addition to the back of the house, projecting 20 feet into the yard, and which includes a new 1,100 square foot sub-basement for storage. Kim will talk more about one of the adverse impacts to that addition when she has her remarks. We have objected to the size and scope of this project from the beginning and how it relates and impacts not only our home, but others, privacy, peaceful enjoyment, views, etc. Kim will now cover areas where we believe the guidelines were not fully or correctly applied. Then I will cover two other points and then wrap up with a very specific request of the board. Kim?
Okay, so you see our house behind you. We did that on purpose so you could see what it looks from our side. And there's the brown piles up the hill to us. We're absolutely not against the Pile Brown family adding to their house or tearing down or gutting or whatever plan they want to do. However, we are against the current iteration of the tear down plan because it disregards the protective covenants and restrictions in our deed. It violates RA's design guidelines for tear down and addition, and it would negatively impact our experience of living in our home on the property next door. As part of the original deeds, there's just some words in there I think will help everybody to think about it maybe from our point of view. It says there should be harmony of external design with surrounding structures, location with respect to topography and finished grade elevation, the effect on the outlook from surrounding property, and all other factors which would make the other property desirable or suitable. In addition, later it says the effect on the surrounding property, the privacy and obstruction of views, and the timing of completion. So there's a lot of things we feel have not been examined closely from the neighboring properties, ours. It says this for tear down, it says the size should be appropriate in scale and massing with the existing houses in the neighborhood and the size of the lot. And like Glenn said, the proposed square footage is approximately 82% bigger than its current size. The current size is average with all the other houses on the two streets that we have here. And so it's just not appropriate in scale and massing with the existing homes. On the tear down guideline, it says no newly constructed house should be located so as to unreasonably obstruct views of neighboring houses. Again, it repeats, it says the same things over and over. So I don't want to bore you, but I just want to make that point that it's clearly in the guidelines how it affects your neighbor's house is one of the guidelines. So like I said, our house is next door and downhill. It's downhill side to side and it's downhill front to back. The proposed roof height will definitely adversely impact us by obstructing views of trees, sky, and sunlight from our 6 windows that face 2360. The new roof line should be lowered so it cannot block those views. We have sunlight that currently comes in these windows. The new roof will block that. In addition to the trees and just the sky. I love windows. I love the outdoors. That's why we bought this house. Therefore, the roof should be no higher than the highest point of the existing roof, which is 18 feet. We request this modification in the design before the DRB moves to a final vote. In addition, the applicant's proposal includes a large addition where the current deck is, and Glenn mentioned, with the big windows and the side-facing deck and the side-facing stairs. It faces our house and yard and deck. We request a modification in the design so that the proposed deck, doors, windows, and stairs face the rear of the property instead of the side before the DRB moves to a final vote. For these reasons, we request that this project be dramatically reduced in size to harmonize with the neighborhood and not affect the privacy and views from the existing homes, our home, as is stated in the deed to our home. So thank you very much, and Glenn will wrap up.
All right, thanks, Kim. We just have two points, and both of them are about the chimney, and then I'll wrap up with the specific requests that I alluded to earlier. The reason suggested for removing the chimney in the October 19th meeting was because once this new house is built, the legacy chimney will look quote unquote dinky. The chair jokingly called the word dinky his technical term. We think, though, it highlights and reinforces the problem with the project. The new house will dwarf the existing chimney, and the same thing will happen to our house. The distance between our two houses is fairly close, about 27 feet. Removing the chimney doesn't address the bigger problem, the size and siting of this large project. Secondly, if they go forward and they do remove the chimney, that would require construction workers to violate the so-called no-go construction zone on the left side of the house, what the developer called the quote limit of disturbance, which will be also, we're told, surrounded by a chain link fence to prevent construction workers from going onto that no-go zone. It's a no-go zone by design to protect the plants and trees on that side of the house. We would note the approved Fairfax County building permit relied on this no-go zone as part of the submitted plans. And if they intend to go forward to remove the chimney, likely a revised plan would need to be submitted and approved by the county. So just to wrap it up, we do not oppose anyone from adding to their home or increasing the size of their home, but it should be within the guidelines of fitting harmoniously in with existing homes and not cause adverse impacts, which we think this one does, especially to us. So we request the following design be modified. 1, to reduce the height of the roof to the existing highest point of the current roof, which Kim alluded to already. 2, move the 4 9-foot-high side-facing window doors to the very back of the home so they face the woods rather than our home, our yard, and our deck. We think if those 2 things are done, the chimney can remain as it is, and we think that it should remain as it is. So with that, that wraps up our prepared remarks. We're happy to engage in any dialogue or discussion that.
Great, thank you so much. So what I would like to do for the appeal, I'd like to go around the room and just see if there's any questions for the applicants. And then we can discuss kind of how we feel about it. So Dan, do you have any questions for the appellants?
No.
Bruce, do you have any questions for the appellants?
Yeah, I do have a couple questions.
Great.
I understood from the presentation that the misapplication, the specific misapplication of a guideline had to do with the tear down and fill in guidelines. And, but and I think there may be other things to discuss, but just to clarify that, do we know, does anyone know whether this is a clearing of approximately 25% or more of an existing single-family home? Because that's what a tear down is under our guidelines. And I didn't understand that. I don't say it isn't, but I don't currently have the understanding to know whether this is actually a tear
It's
down.
on the agenda, it says addition.
Well, I think to answer that question, if you look at just the square footage change of the house, it's going from 3,048 square feet to over 5,500 square feet, not counting the sub basement. It will require substantial tear down of the roof. I assume. I think it would be hard to argue that it's less than 25%. I don't know that it's. We think it definitely applies, and
The owner described it as a gut. That feels like more than 25%. Because
Bruce, from that perspective, I don't believe that we're reducing the overall footprint of the structure in question by such a total. The adjustments in square footage have largely to do with the vertical expansion, not with the reduction in footprint.
Right. And that would have been my understanding. And this is really just a clarification, because I'm not sure that we would apply the misapplication of that guideline. I do have an additional question. I believe you pointed out errors in the application in terms of the facts of the size that was presented. Is that a new fact that you'd be presenting?
Well, I think there's a couple outstanding questions that we're really basing this appeal strictly on the November 16th meeting, the documents that were shared ahead of that meeting and the discussion of the meeting. During that meeting, I don't think you were on that meeting, maybe you were, there was a quote unquote new plan unveiled during the call that purported to reduce the size of the project by changing the roof pitch from 712 to 512. We've not gotten any updated information about what the new actual size is. And I think those forms have just been submitted, and those will be adjudicated at the next meeting on the 15th of February. So we're basing it solely on what we saw before. And in the application, you went past it. The builder did provide square footage, and we did the calculating of adding that stuff up. It's in one of the emails that was shared. So we're just going by what the design that was originally submitted had and what the square footage was reported in their own application. It has been described as a whole house renovation and sometimes a near gut renovation by the applicants themselves.
Thank you.
Is that all, Bruce?
That's it.
Thank you.
Scott, did you have any questions for the applicant?
Sorry, no, thank you.
Mike, did you have any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Jim, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
And did Karen join? I didn't see Karen. I don't think I've seen her join. Karen, are you on? Okay, I don't think so. So the only question I have for you guys would be the guideline with the. I mean, what's tricky here, and the reason why I'm struggling with this is, they don't have approval. They have in concept approval. So the hope was that even though there was some new information brought in at the meeting that wasn't part of the original application, I do understand the feeling that it should have been a part of the application, so everybody could have seen it beforehand and gotten a kind of a better feeling for the scale of the new roof height and everything. My hope was, and what I like to do with members is try to help them keep their project moving. So when we defer it or we deny it, it feels like they can't really keep moving forward. And I think that was kind of what caused us to kind of give them the in concept approval to kind of say, hey, you're on the right direction, but we still need a lot more information. Like you said, they're in the process of resubmitting. I was hoping that we could have that new information for today. if the appeal was accepted, we would kind of have that stuff to kind of review. But from what I've heard from staff is that does not exist yet. So that's all kind of all where I'm sitting on it at the moment. From the board's perspective, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, oh, sorry. Can you guys unmute Mr. Small real quick? I don't know. Somebody mute him on accident.
There we go.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was hoping that you guys could maybe address the specific request that we made tonight, and perhaps is there a way to rule to revise the design to address the 2 points that we asked for, and also the chimney. Is that something you could do this evening?
From a design perspective, no. I mean, technically, all we can do is hear the appeal, and then we can't talk about the application unless we accept the appeal. So that's just our process. All those points can be taken, and brought up in the meeting next month. But you could bring those up if the appeal was accepted today, if that makes sense. And we basically are going to rehear the case from the beginning. Is kind of how it would work. So since you're appealing the last in concept approval, we would go back to where they have one in concept approval from a couple months ago, and we basically are appealing back the last, just last November's in concept approval. So we'd restart from that previous in concept approval. So then those points, could come up at that juncture. Okay. All right. Well, let me go around the board and see how they feel about the appeal, and then we'll see if we need to cross that bridge or not. Okay. All right. So Dan, did you have any thoughts on the appeal? Dan, I think
I personally did not love some of the design of the facade the first go around, but as far as the size
it's not
goes,
about what you.
It's not.
Yeah.
No, I understand. So, but as far as the size goes and some of the things that they have particularly mentioned, I'm personally not inclined to hear the appeal.
Okay. So you don't feel a guideline was misapplied at the moment? Bruce, what's your thought?
Well, that was really what I was looking for, was the basis of an appeal. I do think that there's, without a new fact or a misapplication, then we can't hear the appeal on the approval in concept. But an approval in concept is not an approval. And when it came to final, we would be addressing the things. It seems to me some of the things that the Smalls have addressed tonight, which are really not in my mind part of the decision on appeal. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't think it's that they've established what is necessary for an appeal, but I don't think that we've ended the discussion of the design.
I agree. I mean, I think the design still has some tweaking that needs to happen so it does fit within our guidelines. And that was the hope with the in concept and kind of getting them to come back with that information. Scott, did you have any thought on the appeal?
No, I think Bruce echoed my question. I guess my question is since this is an appeal following a conceptual approval, when is the home edition applicant scheduled to return, or is that scheduled?
Staff, from what I heard from the appellant, was that they believe it's coming back in February. Is that sound accurate? Oh, that is correct. So it's next full board in February. So just next month.
Okay. Yeah, I only asked because I agree with you, Bruce, and I think I agree. I'm not inclined to hear the appeal now, but maybe that between now and then is an appropriate time for the design to address some of these concerns.
Yeah, and what I hope is that the applicant, I believe they're on tonight, they hear maybe some of these sentiments from their neighbors, that maybe there's a way they can still tweak a little bit of the design and actually get it in the application so we can make sure that everyone sees it kind of beforehand.
Exactly.
Mike, did you have anything? Any thoughts on the appeal?
Nope, just echoing the previous thoughts of the other board members. I think we're there.
Jim, did you have any thoughts on the appeal?
No.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion on whether to accept or deny the appeal?
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
This is Dan, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? Any? Bruce, did you vote
Yes, I did. I voted.
in the affirmative? Okay. Any
affirmative.
against? I think I heard everybody said yes. And any abstentions? All right, so the appeal is denied. We will obviously see this application next month for the in concept. Thank you for your time, Mr. and Mrs. Small. All right, moving on to 11519. Catalapa. I have no idea how to say this. Catalapa Court?
Catalpa?
Catalpa? Catalpa?
Alpha.
Catalpa? I honestly don't know how to say it. Is the applicant on for 11519 Catalpa
Yep,
Court?
I'm here, Catalpa.
Catalpa. All right. Hello, sir. Jeff.
Hey, how's it
All
going?
right. Walk us through what you are doing.
All right, so basically in our backyard, we have we're in like kind of a flood zone. So what happens is we're at the bottom of a hill, and whenever it rains, all the water comes flying down Sweet Bay and also our neighbor, and actually the RA water drain is right behind us. So when we first moved in, there was excess water and mud, and it was just a disaster, especially in the summer. It's really bad. So what we did is we decided to build a patio. So we have a patio that actually drains. The water goes all the way through. There's not standing water. And what happened was we had kind of an emergency situation when we first installed it. Yeah, there you go. You can see it. There was water flooding into the basement. There were all kinds of problems. So we kind of moved fast on it. We have a single family home. We had never owned a single family before, so we weren't aware. And so we did it. And now we're asking afterwards about the design to get it approved.
Okay. So I believe I remember this application from years ago now that I'm thinking about
so
it.
it got approved. But what DRB wanted us to do is to remove some of the outer circle and put mulch in there. And what happened was we didn't appeal in time. I messed up on the process. I didn't understand it. I guess I missed a key window to appeal. So in concept, it didn't really make any sense to put mulch in an area where, it would just wash away. So it doesn't really make any sense to put mulch on a patio. So that was the piece of the, maybe it's highlighted right there. But everything was fine. We did everything else. We installed all the azaleas. We put up the trees, we did everything. So, the one piece that wasn't satisfied was the putting mulch on the patio. So that's why I submitted through CAM, I submitted a application that was materially different that basically puts in like an azalea bed on the right side of it. And I guess it helps with blocking the view a little bit of although all the neighbors love it. So I submitted a materially different application.
Gotcha. Okay. So I believe there's an affected party, which I believe is CAM, representing Reston Association, correct?
Yes, you're correct.
All right, Cam, since you're representing an association, you have 5 minutes to state your affected partiness and go for it.
Awesome. Just to reiterate what the homeowner said, this was a kind of product of our post-DRB inspection process, where we check to ensure that a project conforms to the DRB approval. It did not, and so the time had expired for the homeowner to appeal the decision to keep or attempt to keep the existing elements the way that it is now. Since that expired, the homeowner had to materially change his application in order for the DRB to review it. He has changed his application And Reston Association has no issue with the current setup, and will encourage the DRB to review and consider it as it is being presented.
Okay. And just to clarify, the current setup of the yard is not completed according to this application we're reviewing, right? There's parts of it that are existing, but the azalea beds and, like, let's say the hollies and all that stuff is not been completed to date yet, correct?
Correct. So most of it's done. Sorry, was that for Cam? My bad.
Well, I guess it was more for Cam, since they went out there to.
Okay, sorry about that.
I assume
My
they went
bad.
out there to kind of verify things, or I guess on their post DRB inspection. So I'm assuming the stuff they're proposing that made the application materially different has not been completed yet.
That is correct. And the homeowner is waiting for DRB approval to move forward with what he is proposing.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So let me go around the room, sir, and then we'll see if anyone has any questions for you, Jeff, and then we'll start our review. Okay. Dan, did you have any questions for the applicant?
So I'm struggling a little bit with what's out there now and what's not. Is the putting green essentially still present on the property? Because this is what's shown right now is a
that's like a
drawing of what it
render.
will
That's
be.
that's like a rendering of, I think, the finished product.
So is this closer to what's actually there now?
Yes.
So the putting green is there, Dan. What is there? I think if you go to slide, I don't know what slide this is, Steph.
16. The one you're looking at right there is pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, the putting green is there. I mean, back in 2019, we approved the putting green and basically asked for the outermost layer of the turf be removed. That obviously did not occur, but now they're basically coming back with a new application to kind of better screen this turf from the neighboring RA trail, and it looks like partially from kind of a shared lot line.
And also it's going to remove a big section of the turf. That's like
Gotcha.
a given, is to remove a bunch of it.
Gotcha. On that right side where the new azalea bed's going.
Correct. And I think it will look really good, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So Dan, does that make sense?
It does. That's my only question for now.
Bruce, any questions for the applicant? Bruce, you there?
I'm sorry. No, I have no question. That explanation helped me. Thank you.
Yep. Scott, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, thanks.
Great. Mike, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right. Jim, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
All right. I also don't have any questions. I think it makes sense. So I'm not too worried about it. Any thoughts on the design, a motion to make? Everyone fully understand kind of what they're proposing to do?
Michael, I do have one comment, since this is in response to a citation. A time frame for compliance on the new design, if approved, should be established.
Okay. I mean, I will make a motion to approve the application as submitted with a 120-day implementation requirement.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against?
Nay.
One nay from Dan. Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes 5-1-0. All right, thank you, Jeff. All right, moving on to application H, United Christian Parish. They are back with their final sign design. Is the representative from United Christian Parish on?
believe so. We're trying to unmute them now.
Great.
Okay, I think I am unmuted.
There you are. Hello.
Hello again.
Welcome back. So you guys have your sign design back to us. So feel free to present it, and we will let you know what we think.
Okay, so our initial design was, I think, had too much information on it. You wanted us to simplify it, and it had too many colors in it. You wanted us to minimize the colors and to make it match our building to a more degree. And so we have redesigned it, making just the name of the school be there, and their logo, instead of the primary colors, to have it be more in the brick tones of the building. The building is gray and brick, and so we tried to stay within that kind of color scheme and still show the diversity of the children. That is an important part of who we are. We've also made it a bit smaller, since there wasn't as much information on there, and to free up some of the money. I know that the materials that we had priced it at, weren't ones that you necessarily liked, and to make it with different materials was going to cost more. And so by scaling down the sign, that would enable us to use some different materials, as well. We had two options for the background, with the white or the gray. Again, there's not much white in the building itself, but so the gray was trying to honor your request to match the building more.
Okay, great. Well, let's go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for you, and then we will see how this works with our guidelines. All right. Dan, did you have any thoughts on the new proposed sign?
I don't have any questions right now.
All right. It looks like you do. They obviously there's two options in the application. So if you have a question about either option, feel free to ask it. Bruce, did you have any questions? Sorry, Bruce, you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't have a question, but I do prefer option one.
Okay. Scott, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No, thanks.
Okay. Mike, did you have any questions?
No questions, sir. Thank you.
Great. And Jim, did you have any questions?
No.
All right. I don't have any questions. I guess maybe I do have one question. So the posts are wood. Are they painted, or are they just going to weather? And that's kind of why they're shown as gray.
Oh, no, they're to be painted the dark gray.
Okay, so they're going to be painted the dark gray. Okay. The only thing I wish there was kind of a rendering of what it looked like in the garden, of kind of where it's going to sit. I think the colors that you proposed are going to work well with kind of the azaleas, especially in springtime, and not only do they complement the brick, but they also complement the azaleas that are all you guys have beautiful landscaping all along North Shore Drive there. So I think this will fit in. It's a good size. I think it'll look kind of in place, and it's kind of sitting there right in front of the preschool. So I think it'll be kind of perfect. I don't have any problems with the design. I think it looks good. Does anyone have any other thoughts on the design and want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve option one as presented.
Okay. So we have
I'll
option
second.
one. We have a second.
I'll
Do we have any
second.
further discussion on that? All right. So all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right. Motion passes. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to application I. Right next door, we have 11514 Hickory Cluster. Is the representative from staff? Remind me, this is an appeal, is it? They're coming back with more information, correct? Resubmission, yeah, okay, to cure the disapproval, okay.
Right. So yeah, they had a rooftop modification, which was an entryway, and
Yep.
they came back with modifications.
All right, do we have the applicants on?
Trying to locate our applicants here.
I don't see them.
I don't either. If the applicants from 11514 are present, can you please raise your hands? I don't see them here.
All right, well, if they're not here, let's move them to the end of the agenda for the people that are here. I know there's probably affected parties here for this application, but I more than likely it's going to end up getting deferred to the next meeting if the applicant doesn't show up. But let's move on to the next item on the agenda, and then we'll come back. We just have one more on the agenda, and then we can jump back up to that one, and maybe they'll show up. I don't know, staff, if we have an email or something that we can reach out to them and just shoot them a quick note, just remind them that they are on a meeting tonight. All right, so let's move on to 11315. Yeah, yes, Cam.
I believe you need a motion to defer it to the end of the agenda. And I do see that UCP has a question. If you have a question for staff, we'd be happy to answer it if you just email us at drbstaff@reston.org.
I'll move to defer this item until the end of the meeting, end of the agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, the motion passes, so we'll move it to the end of the agenda. All right, let's jump over to application J, 11315 Stones Throw Drive. All right. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
This one. All right. Hello, sir. So you are looking, it looks like you have a partial approval, and then you had a deferred decision on some parts of your pool plan, correct?
Correct.
All right. So if you want to walk us through what the items that we are looking at specifically tonight, that would be great. So
there's a couple of
floor is
items.
yours.
There's a couple of items with the pool. There's a fence around the property that was discussed, and there's the location of the pool equipment. And I'd like these two things to be dealt separately, just in the event the fence is not approved tonight or is argued about, that the pool equipment at least can be considered separately. Fairfax County does not require a fence, so the pool does not need a fence to be approved per Fairfax County, so that can be delayed as needed. I'd like to get it done, but if we have to delay it, I'm fine with that. Basically, we had a pool equipment that a neighbor, the Finches, are not happy with. The pool equipment actually, should I go with that myself or should I have JR do that? So actually, you know what? I think it's best if I pass you to the expert. I hired a very qualified landscaper and pool designer to make that project. It's a very high-end project, and I think he'll be the best person to describe what the project is. So JR, if you're here, I'd like you to take the microphone now, if possible.
Okay, yeah, I just jumped in. So like Dr. Tisser was saying, I'm a landscape architect. I'm also owner of a design build company that, we built a lot of pools, outdoor projects. And so we're, getting ready to start this pool project so I can answer any of the questions related to that. I guess the first one we're talking about, and we can look at this plan that you have up, is the pool equipment. So with any pool, you want the pool equipment to be, within 50 feet of the pool for, the best hydraulics and filtration systems and things like that. You also want it to be about the same elevation as the pool. So with that, you want it to, not be much higher, not be much lower for, again, the best filtration and pumps and things like that. So we've located this pool equipment, on the corner of the house, which you can see kind of that bottom right there. And because the grade goes slightly up, because it's a walkout basement, we're going to be digging out the pool equipment. And I think there's a picture somewhere of it, but basically digging out that pad so that it's somewhat buried. Again, that's to keep it level, but to also hide the pool equipment from a lot of views. So it'll be about 2 feet below on that back wall. There's a dimension there. It might be 2.5, 2 feet. And then we're proposing to put 4-foot tall skip laurels, which is an evergreen shrub, on fairly densely planted on the backside, which is what we do with a lot of our pools. Most of our clients prefer a more natural screening than like a fence or walls or things like that. So we tend to do more planting to screen it. And then I think some of the issues were the maybe sight lines of the pool equipment, which I think would be mitigated by the planting that we have in front. Sound was also brought up. The main thing that makes sound with pool equipment is the heater and the pump. The heater's kind of nominal. It's not something that anybody really talks about as being a lot of sound. The pumps, especially back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, used to be very, very loud. Then the state of Virginia went to variable speed pumps. So basically you have to use variable speed pumps for everything. So they're much, much quieter. And the one we use is actually the quietest on the market. It's, I think its lowest point is like 40 decibels or something. I think there was something we added on here about that as well. But and then looking at that, and then the distance from the property line. So if you go back to that, yeah, thank you. This location we felt was the best for sort of all neighbors because of the proximity to any other property lines. If we were to site it, say the very back rear property line, there are some aerial photos somewhere around, but that house in the back is much closer than any other house. It's probably only 15 feet off of the property line. Yeah, if you can look at that one, if you see how close that is. So those are some of the considerations we put into, figuring out that location. And I don't know if there's any follow-up questions on that piece, or if anything I missed. I don't know if I missed anything, Dr. Tisserand.
I think that was good. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If I can, I just want to go over the distance. So the distance from the proposed pool equipment location is about 80 feet from Mrs. Finch's house. If we were to put it where Mrs. Finch proposed, it would be 35 feet from Mr. Guillermo property. So 35 feet is very close versus 80 feet. The equipment also, not to be said, is going to be partially buried and fenced, and the pump is very quiet. It actually is less intrusive than an HVAC unit, and it's quieter than HVAC unit. So if you look at the HVAC unit, here you go. Yeah, that's a great picture.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you look at the property on the other side of the Finch, their patio is 66 feet from my 2 HVAC units, which are like 75 decibels, way higher than the pump. Mrs. Finch is 80 feet from my property, and she's not directly facing this pump, and there's some evergreen trees between her property and these pumps. So definitely not much to see here for her. I could, that's basically where we're at. And if you look at the other property behind me, it's very close to where the pond could be.
Okay, great. So since we have affected parties and since they're going to be talking on both matters, even though we can't accept your request to kind of review them as two separate items, I'd like to at least still hear about the fence, and then that way I can hear from the affected parties, and then we can talk about the two items. Okay.
Right. And can I go over one thing very quick,
Yep.
since we're going to speak about the fence? If you can go back down to the other aerial picture you had, there was, no, not that. We were just over it. No, it was the right one where you were, but just next to it. Yeah, if you can go up or down a little bit. Yeah, right here. So, yeah. Okay, stop right here if you don't mind. Okay, so my house is right at the center with the brown roof, and the fence that is being discussed tonight is with the property that's light gray right above it. Okay, that fence line that's in blue now, that's where the fence is proposed. That's the property line. My neighbors are claiming this is a wooded area, so the fence should not be there. And this is definitely not a wooded area by any means. You can see it from here. GR, if you can elaborate on what a wooded area really is.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think there's pictures somewhere. If not, I know I have additional pictures, but the area has multiple evergreen trees like Leland cypress, cryptomeria, all non-native species. And there's maybe a handful of the trees that are in that area. I mean, all the trees in that area were planted by one of the homeowners on either house. It wasn't a natural wooded area that would be there.
So, basically, there's no reason not to put a fence on the property line, and it's not going to damage the tree. GR can confirm that. So there's no reason to change the location of that fence.
Yeah, there's one cryptomeria tree, which is it's an evergreen tree that's there that may have to have a limb or two cut back, but it won't damage the tree at all, to keep that on the property line. I think that's the only tree affected. The other trees that would be affected potentially, which I don't think they actually are, were holly trees, I think planted by the neighbor on your property, if that's correct.
Correct. They planted trees on my property, and now they want me to put my fence away from the tree they planted on my property.
So there's a group of, just to clarify, there's a group of holly trees, maybe 5 of them, like that were right here, that were, I believe, planted by this neighbor onto this property. There's the one, I think this is the one cryptomeria that, might have to have a limb or two, cut off the bottom. And basically, according to, I believe it's Virginia law, any branches, if a neighbor plants a tree on your property, I know when I'm working with a lot of the other clients, you can prune those limbs up against your property line because that is technically your property.
You guys want to walk us through kind of a little bit of the design of the fence? Because for a lot of us, it's the first time we're seeing this application. So I think we understand that you want it on the property line, but what exactly is the fence made of? What does it look like, et cetera?
Sure, it's just a standard black aluminum pool fence. So something that you can really see through that sort of disappears as much as possible. Very similar to the fence that you can't really see that well, but is in this image right here.
So yeah, it's a continuity of the fence that's already existing in the back of my property.
Okay, and that fence has approval and was already, staff, we have approval for that fence that's existing?
That has been there for like years.
This fence was on the part of the deferment, the fence with the 2 gates. You're saying, is the existing fence already approved?
Yeah, correct. They're referencing an existing fence. And there's pictures of an existing fence that I know I've seen that I think you're matching, correct? Does a neighbor have that type of fence, or was that a fence you put up?
Exactly.
So it's a neighbor. A neighbor has a similar fence that borders your property line right now.
You're correct.
Okay. And so you guys will just be continuing that exact design.
Correct. So if you stop right here, where you are here on the line, the horizontal line, almost horizontal up top above the pool. Above the pool, who has control of this? Okay. All right. So if you look at the pool here, that long property line that is parallel to the pool, basically, all this is already a fence, and we're just going to do exactly the same fence to continue it.
Yeah, that blue line's existing. There'll be a section here that comes up, and then just a section that goes across here and back.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, if that completes your presentation, we'll come back and ask you guys questions, obviously, but I need to go through and hear from the affected parties. So I believe we have a couple affected parties on the application. And just a reminder for affected parties, you have 3 minutes to kind of make your case for why you're an affected party. Then we will move on to the next person just so we have enough time to get to everybody. So the first affected party is LaShonda?
Janet Brown and Josh Yeoman.
Okay. Are they on tonight?
Yep, we're here.
Guys, all right, go ahead and get started.
Hey, how are you? I'm just going to read my statement so I stay within the time limit, if that's okay.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, so good evening. I'm Janet Brown. My husband Josh Ullman and I and our family live next door to the applicant. Our address is 113. We are the neighbor to the left. As part of his pool application, he's proposing an ornamental black metal fence, as you've heard, all along property lines, including our common property line. The proposed fence location runs through wooded areas and will impact several existing mature healthy trees, including but not limited to 2 cryptomeria and several hollies. I've submitted photos to the board before the last hearing and today as well, showing a pink ribbon that marks our common property line. I hope you can see those. Those are per a recent line survey that we had done, so that's very accurate. As you can see from those, the fence would come very close to several existing trees. This can be easily addressed so there's no loss or more damage to trees on his property and ours. The fence location should be moved inside the property line onto applicant's property to avoid impact to the trees in compliance with RA's own fencing regulations. We'd also like to see additional screening installed to soften the appearance of the black metal fence, which we don't agree just disappears into, we can see it, it is black and it is metal, and to screen us from the pool project. I'd like to quote to you several provisions directly from RA's own fencing regulations. Fences should be located to avoid removing existing trees or other significant vegetation. If a contiguous neighbor objects to the construction of a fence, the DRB may require the fence be set substantially inside the common property line. Ornamental fences should be used to enclose or define limited areas near the house. They are generally not suitable for extensive use along the property line, especially in wooded areas. The DRB may require complementary landscaping to soften and enhance the appearance of ornamental fencing. The DRB will generally require long lengths of fencing to be broken up by inserting setbacks at intervals. And I also point your attention to 2 drawings included on the fencing regulations that specifically show locating fencing to avoid existing trees. I hope you can see those. They're on page 3 and page 8 of the DRB's fencing regulations. Based on all of that, we asked the DRB to apply their own fencing regs to ensure that the trees in this case are not impacted. There have been several trees removed on the property already. We've lost a lot of screening, and there is a large pool project, being installed. So we'd like to see no more trees removed or impacted. And to ensure that, we'd ask that the fence location simply be moved inside the applicant's property line accordingly. Thank you.
Real quick.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
For who is next, LaShonda?
Next we have Kim and Glenn Finch.
Hello.
Are the Finches on?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, you'd like us to go now?
Yep.
Yes.
So you have, just a reminder, you have 3 minutes. So go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. Hi. As she said, we are Kim and Glenn Finch, and we live on the other side of Dr. Tisserand, which where the pool equipment, and that's our issue. And in following your guideline that the mechanical equipment should be located and screened as to minimize its visual and acoustical impact on neighboring properties, what we have asked from the beginning is just merely that the pool equipment be placed in his backyard so that we do not have to see it or hear it from the front of our house. What is different, and one of your DRB members specified on the last meeting that you've never had the situation where the front, there's a picture of, the next slide shows a picture, if you can pull that up, our view, that's the view of his house from our front yard. And so the way Gulick built the homes, the front of our home faces the side of his home. And right now we have about 8 existing pools in Wyndham Hills. All of the owners have been conducive to their neighbors and have put the pool equipment in their backyards. All 8 of them have them in the backyards. I've included some pictures there for you of that. And we would just like the same neighborly attention that it would go in the backyard and be fully blocked, landscaped, and a surround around it, so that we don't have to see it or hear it out of the front of our house. And we've been told that you've never had this position before, or this circumstance precedent, and we hope the board is able to look at that and set a new guideline or precedent that would protect affected parties from having pool equipment outside the front of their house, which I don't think any of you all would like to have. And I'll just leave it to Glenn to finish up.
So fundamentally, in preparing for this
There's something wrong with your guys' microphone. From what
we
I
looked
can.
at the 8 that were already installed in the neighborhood as well as other neighbors. We found that those neighbors took the time to build enclosures, to screen, and to make sure that the rest of the guidelines were upheld. All we're asking Dr. Pastrana to do is the same.
And if you can see in the pictures, the pool equipment in reality looks a lot more than the architectural renderings that he's given. And if you can see on these pictures, neighbors have either put it behind walls, put it in structures, and then the next one shows that they put it behind their fence and a whole hedge with the structure on the other side. If you can show it in the backyard, the next screen, or the one before that, the previous page. This one, these are all backyard. One's in a pool house, one's behind a screen in their backyard, and the other one has a fence, then the hedge, so that no one has to see it. And the issue that we have is that it's in our front yard and not the side of our house. So they Gulick has built these homes.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Finch.
Great. Thank you, guys. All right. Are there any other affected parties, LaShonda?
Yes, I have Chris. I saw he was on. Give me 1 second.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Chris. Yes. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes, so you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. So just one quick thing relative to the existing fence. So that fence is on our property. We put it in about 18 years ago, and it is was approved by DRB. And I believe the fence that Stefan Tisserand is putting in is, I think, pretty close to the exact style of our fence. The thing I'd say relative to the location of the pump is that I don't know if there's a formal proposal. I saw a photo that shows a position where the pump, a recommended position where the pump should be, and it's in the back corner of Dr. Tisserand's yard. And that is where he referenced that it was 35 feet or yards, 35 feet, I believe, from our house. And, it's, more than half of the 80 feet that's from the Finch's house. And, it's in our backyard. We have a very narrow backyard. We use the backyard quite a bit in the summer. We have a deck out there where we do cookouts, and So, you know, that's not preferred for us. And even if it were adjacent to the back corner of Dr. Tisserand's house, it's still going to be much less than the 80 feet that, you know, that it would be in the other direction. So I think, you know, Kim Finch, her last, you know, minute or so, I could barely hear what she said. So I don't know if there was anything relevant. But I'm cool with moving on. I'm good.
Great, thank you. LaShonda, do we have anyone else? Is that it? LaShonda, you're muted.
That's all we have for this application.
Okay, great. All right, well, let me go around to the members to see if, or DRB members, see if there's any questions for the applicant. So if we could have the applicant unmuted if they are muted, and then that way we can ask them any questions. All right, Dan, did you have any thoughts on the fence or the pool equipment for the applicant? Any questions?
I have 2 questions for the applicant. Okay. LaShonda, could you go to D, the file D, and go to page, I guess 2? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so for the applicant, the pink rope, ribbon, whatever it is shown here, do you agree that that is your property line?
Yes, I do, but I want to make a comment here. This is a picture that's taken at an angle that benefits them, and I think it's appropriate to look on the aerial view or where it goes to the trees. Actually, there's to the couple of trees that it goes nearby, and this definitely makes things look worse than they really are live. So I think being right on the property line, if they would be taking a picture from above the ribbon, you would have a clear view of where the branches are.
Okay, so LaShonda, go to page 3.
It's a twisted picture. If you look at the aerial picture, I think you'll get a much better vision of what's going on.
Go to page 3, LaShonda. So I think that's more in line with what you're talking about. That's pretty much straight down.
Exactly. And just the bottom one, the bottom one is accurate. The one up top is still taken as an angle to make the branch look more like they're on my property.
Okay, and second question, because I'm partially just confirming, for your pool equipment that you're proposing on the side of the house, it does not appear that you're proposing any screening of any sort. Is that true?
No, we are proposing to put a very, very dense skip laurels to actually screen and there's a picture in there that's documented that was shown during the presentation of GR. So we want to put dense skip laurels to make a natural screen, actually.
Okay, so if someone can, there's a lot of pages here, I apologize. If someone could show me that would be appreciated.
Yeah, like slide 11 kind of shows it.
31 as well.
By the way, I want to point out the picture you have now, the picture Mrs. Finch showed of what she sees from her house, it's not from her house, it's from the property line. There's many trees in the way.
Okay, so an addendum question then, since I said earlier too. With the skip laurels that you're proposing to put there, would you be open to putting something that's more opaque, a small fence, some sort of enclosure that's not purely vegetated?
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
All right,
like a solid fence that would be maybe 4 feet high or something like that, knowing that the equipment will be buried.
I think something like that might be helpful here, but that's all my questions for now, Mike.
Okay. Bruce, do you have anything? Any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Scott, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No, thanks.
Mike, did you have any questions?
A point of clarification on this slide, particularly, staff. I think there was some reference to the equipment being somewhat recessed. Is the intention to have it fully below grade or just partially below grade? I mean, just trying to get clarification there.
Partially.
Partially.
Yeah, partially.
Okay. And the intention with the vegetation that you all are proposing was to come back with something that is mature. We're not intending to plant something 6 inches high and it'll be mature and
No,
be
no,
screening.
we're gonna put 4 feet tall skip laurels right away.
Thank you, sir. That's it for me, Michael.
Jim, did you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any questions, just a clarification. In the prior review, I had asked the landscaper if they would consider planting more mature skip laurels around the pool equipment, and they said that they would.
Yeah, we can do 6 feet if you want, that's fine.
Okay. So I don't know what I don't know if the original application only showed 4 feet. It sounds like the applicant is maybe willing to do 6 feet. It's kind of a double-edged sword sometimes with bigger stuff, because then it doesn't get established as good. Skip laurels are going to probably grow anywhere, so I'm not too worried about it. My couple questions are, so for the fence, and it's more of a question for, is Tony on? Legal?
Yes.
Hey, Tony, quick question. On our guidelines and where it talks about neighbor agreement and if it's a shared lot line, I mean, if the neighbor does not agree to the fence, I mean, isn't it pretty clear that our guideline says that it needs to be stepped back from the property line? Because isn't it a shared agreement because it's on the property line, and therefore it would need to be a shared responsibility?
Yes, that's what, you know, Cam can correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since I reviewed that particular guideline, but yes, it would be a shared obligation if it was on the property line. And so if it's going to be a sole obligation, then you need to step it back.
That's yeah, because the way I was reading, I pulled up the guideline, and the way that neighbor agreement, it was basically saying, if they don't agree, that it seems like it needs to, it needs to step back. And so even if it's, 2 feet, 3 feet, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I think we have some leeway so that way they can have maintenance on their side of the fence, and or potential screening. So I just wanted to clarify that guideline. And I don't have any questions about the pool equipment per se, but the applicant had said, the view that the affected party was showing was from the lot line versus the actual house. And so I'm curious, I was trying to look at the plat that you guys provided on slide 39. What other vegetation exists kind of near the property line on the side of the pool equipment that's there now? It looks like it's kind of more like taller trees. I mean, would you be interested in kind of planting a couple more understory, more skip laurels or hollies or something that's going to grow in the shade underneath those trees that maybe would help, kind of have a double layer effect around the perimeter, just a couple there that are directly kind of outside of their view, so that way they can, it's somewhat blocked again, because I do think it's plenty far enough from the property line. I think it's recessed, it's in the ground, and I think it's going to look, I don't think there's really a great spot else to put it. I don't think even moving it around the corner to put it in your backyard is really going to make a difference, because you could move it, 5 feet to the back, but you're still going to be able to see it. It's in materially the same location. So can you guys unmute the applicant real quick? I'm just trying to ask him a question.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So what plants exist kind of on your property line towards the Finches that are those just all taller trees, it appears, kind of from a couple of their photos that they submitted from the property line?
Yeah, what about you look at you look at the photos that I submitted actually that show a picture taken by me from closer to the house than what the picture they took. There's a lot of actually trees existing, that some of them are evergreen. You should have them somewhere in the application.
It's in the first part of the application on page 5.
It's on page 5 of the application, I believe.
Page 5?
Yeah.
Page 5.
Here you go.
Okay, you're page 5.
There you go. Not that one, go up a little more maybe. Or maybe down, I'm so sorry. Go down a little more. Right here. Okay, so this is a view from the proposed pool equipment to the finish of the house right now. Okay, that's really I'm on the wall. Go down even one more if you want picture. I am on the wall, on that wall on the right side, that brick wall. That's where I am on the Finch house. You see where it is now. That's not the picture she showed earlier at all. There's a lot
So
of.
you have some taller trees.
Correct. Some of them are evergreen actually.
Okay. And you even kind of almost have a little hill there also that
absolutely
it's gonna kind of screen it as well. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Yeah, that picture. Thank you for that. That's helpful for sure. All right, so let's go around. The applicant has requested us to kind of review these as two separate items. So does anybody have any further thoughts? So let's kind of tackle let's do the pool equipment first. Dan, did you have any thoughts on the kind of placement and design and any further thing, or if anyone has a motion that they want to put forward?
I'll throw a couple ideas out, and I'm happy to make a motion if there's general consensus on this. So I think that the location, given the various property lines where it's currently situated, is probably a pretty good spot. I do think it would be helpful to have a solid fence of some sort around it, at least from the neighboring property, to firmly block the mechanical nature of kind of viewing that equipment. Behind some skipper rolls and whatnot, I think is good as well. But having something that's just always going to be there no matter what, I think is a good solution to that problem. On the other property line, given where it appears the property line is in the various photos, I think either we should move the fence back onto the applicant's property firmly, just pick a number, just hypothetically 5 feet back or something of that nature, or even if it goes the property line and kind of meanders around some of those trees, but it is very close to at least a few of those trees there, and they should be avoided.
Yeah. Okay. One comment on your comment about something more solid. I think what we run into is kind of against our guideline for kind of having one fence type. And so if we kind of introduce this other type of screening, I don't know how well they're going to work together from a design aesthetic point. And so that would be my only concern. I prefer vegetative kind of fencing. In this instance, the house maybe could, take a brick wall or something that kind of matches the bottom of the house, right? If we went, that extreme for a screening. But so I understand what you're saying, Dan. I don't think doing a fence of wood or of some other material is going to look good. I think we're going to have to do something that is either an existing element on the home or somehow kind of an ornamental fence, which obviously wouldn't really do much of what you're trying to achieve.
And I'm completely agnostic on the materials. I just think something solid there. So I think leaving it in that location is probably the best location. So something solid there, whatever y'all are comfortable with, I'm open to.
Okay. Bruce, did you have any thoughts on the design on either element?
Well, I understand in the notion about the fence and the guideline, and an appropriate setback seems called for under the guideline. I would give it, if we're making a motion, perhaps would give a range so that there can be back from the property line so that it can be fit in to that range without us having to come back and give an exact. As to the pool equipment, I thought as proposed was appropriate, given all the elements that we've talked about in terms of the depth, the visual screening, and the distance. So that's how I was thinking of these things.
Scott, do you have any comments on the design of either element? Scott, you still here? Scott, you may be muted if you're talking. If not, I'll jump to Mike. Do you have any thoughts?
No, sir. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Jim, did you have any thoughts?
No.
So, you know, the pool equipment, I tend to think it's okay how it's submitted, mainly just based on the location. You know, if we were significantly closer, I think I would be a little bit more worried about it. I think honestly, in a lot of the pictures that the affected party submitted for ways other people have taken care of it, I think a lot of those to me look poor, from a design standpoint, and they don't really fit in. This is going to kind of, you know, to me, bearing it almost lower is substantially kind of what I like the best about kind of how this pad is going to set, and with the screening. So from that standpoint, I think I'm okay with it. The fence, I agree. I think, you know, our guideline is pretty clear that if the neighbor does not agree to the fence, that it needs to be stepped in. And so I think here, you know, we have there's this drainage ditch that almost is, you know, I'm sure it's a drainage easement already. I almost want to, you know, step the fence in, like Bruce said, kind of a 3 to 5 foot range. And then I would even run it diagonally across to avoid kind of all that wooded area that, you know, is, you know, a bunch of ornamental kind of more trees, but it is still kind of a wooded area. And it doesn't make sense to kind of run the fence all the way back there. Maybe there's a way to kind of step it in and just run it inside of that drainage area, on the inside face of that. I'm not sure what you guys think about that. But that would be the only thing I think from our guidelines we would want to maybe follow, would be make sure that we step it in, and then maybe even try to just avoid all those trees completely, and go the other way with it. I don't know what you guys think of that.
How far
I'm
in,
open
Michael?
to whatever set in makes sense.
Like the other side of that stand of trees, Michael?
Well, yeah, I mean, what I was, you know, let's say if I'm drawing on this, you know, you almost bring it in and then you can bring it kind of along here or something, just kind of, to me, trying to go through all of this, I don't know if it's really worth it. It's going to get a little bit dicey to try to step it back 3 feet from the property line. And then I think it actually, you know, let's say if you do 3 to 5 feet, it looks like you're going to end up into more trees. So almost if we keep it on the inside of that, it would also help kind of screen it from the neighbors a little better, potentially. That's one reason why I'm also not sure how the metal fence is really going to go over that drainage kind of swale with all the stone. So almost if you, there's the picture. There's kind of the picture on slide. Slide am I on? I don't know. I can't see. Slide 15. And you look on the right-hand side, you can see the pink. If you zoom on that picture on the right, LaShonda. Kind of see how you could kind of traverse, go towards that evergreen tree, and then turn right and kind of go right along the edge of that swale, you know, and just keep it completely, you know, away from that corner with all the trees. That would be the only, and then including kind of a 3 to 5 foot offset, depending on tree locations and whatnot, kind of around the 2 side perimeters, to account for kind of on both sides. That's kind of what my thought is.
Certainly avoids the tree issue. Do we create issues by way of now having a piece of his property that's on the other side of the fence line?
Oh, I mean, that happens all the time with fences, though. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, if this fence was set back 8 feet, you know, from the property line, he could just build it, by our guidelines. Well, I guess it's an ornamental fence, so technically you couldn't. It would have to meet a different style. But I think since this style exists in the neighborhood, it's already on his rear property line. I mean, I think it makes sense to continue that style. So I'm not kind of discrediting that, but it's a drainage ditch on the other side of the property line. So,
Not the end of the world. Just figured I'd ask. We're not throwing a weed whacker over the fence line.
It does happen, even when the RA property, right? If RA doesn't agree that the fence is right on the land, if they step it back 5-8 feet, I don't think we're asking anything unreasonable, 3 to 5 feet. We're not asking, for 15 feet. I think Dan or Bruce had echoed maybe stepping it in. I mean, what do you guys think of a distance? Is 3 to 5 feet? You guys think okay, or?
I agree. I think so.
I agree.
Well, does anyone have a motion, a thought? Let's do 2 separate motions, just so we can keep them separate as the applicant had requested. Does anyone want to make one motion?
Let's go back to the mechanical equipment for a second, because you were saying trying to use something that matches the house in some fashion, which I'm open to, but do you want to say brick or brick appearance, or what are you thinking?
I wasn't thinking anything, because I think what's proposed is okay. It's more of what you're thinking. I just was thinking, if you're going to propose something, I think it needs to materially match the house. And I think the brick water table would be really the only way to go. But like I said, I think it's far enough. I think if we were in, a closer situation, I would maybe push for it more, but.
How about this? I'm going to say this, and I don't mean any offense, Mike. Mike's always free with his opinion. I don't know if anyone else actually said what they're thinking. Does anyone agree with me about a fence, or are y'all happy with what it is?
I'm fine with the way it is.
So
there you go.
Okay.
I'm fine with the way it is.
Scott, are you back on?
Yeah, I think what's shown is acceptable.
Okay. So does anyone want to make a motion on the pool equipment then?
I'll make a motion to approve the portion of the application concerning the pool equipment as submitted.
And so so you want to require the 4-foot skip laurels, correct?
Well, I was saying that with the understanding that A, they grow very fast, and B, that larger ones tend not to do as well. But I could be convinced otherwise if someone felt strongly.
Okay, so there's a motion to accept as submitted with the 4-foot skip laurels. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We can talk about the height of the skip laurels. I think 4 feet is fine. I have skip laurels in my yard, and over the past year they've probably grown at least 1.5 feet. It looks like this side of the house they grow in shade, they grow in sun, they grow in anything. So I think they're a good option. The only thing that I thought about skip laurels that I'm just thinking out loud, because I'm now thinking of my hedge, is staggering them kind of creates a better screen effect than kind of just a row of them, because they can only plant them so close together before they're too close together. Is the landscape architect still on? Could we talk to him real quick? Jay, if you guys unmute JR, please. I mean, you're a landscape architect. I mean, what do you think of staggering some skip laurel, kind of an additional row of skip laurels in front to kind of just do more of a staggered effect on the screen versus the straight row? I mean, what do you think from a skip laurel growing perspective? Do you think that's smart, stupid?
No, I mean, I think it sometimes depends. There's 2 varieties you can get. There's like a West Coast, which is more narrow. And then there's the East Coast version that's a little bit wider because it's grown in our types of soil. So I think it could go either way. It depends on what you have. I mean, our goal is that even, the homeowner here doesn't see it when he's walking around his property. So we plant them staggered or straight, depending on the size that we get in. But the goal is to plant these what we call ball to ball, so it's an instant hedge.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
Okay.
We're not planning on putting them 5 feet apart or anything and waiting a long time. If we're going to put them in at 4 feet, we're going to make a hedge right away, and then something that he's going to maintain, prune, at 6 feet. Because as you know, they'll get 8 feet tall if you let them. So.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, so I think with that, knowing that they're going to plan on bulb to bulb, I think that I'm fine with the arrangement and the height proposed. So with the motion in a second, we had some further discussion. So let's take a vote now on the pool equipment. So all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any against?
Okay.
We have a motion passing 5-1. So let's move on to the fence. Does anybody want to make a motion on the fence?
Michael, you had described the way that it might go through that area. So maybe it's best if you make that motion.
Yeah, so staff, if you could bring up slide 4. And if you kind of zoom in, or no, slide 4, so the one right above this. And you zoom in, what I'm thinking is that it would basically go right behind, the fence would go behind to the left of 4, 5, 6, 7 tree, right? So it would go right, kind of thread the needle between those, stay away from that whole conglomerate of trees in the corner. And then we would step the fence anywhere from 3 to 5 feet from the shared property line due to not a mutual agreement in place for the fence. Does that make sense? So I'm happy to make the motion. So what I'll do is I'll make a motion to approve the fence in design and style that matches within the existing community in accordance with our guidelines, but require due to no mutual agreement between neighbors on the shared property line that the fence be set in anywhere from 3 to 5 feet from the property line, and will be run along the left side of trees 4, 5, and 6, and 7, as noted in the application, on the applicant's side of the drainage swale that is in the corner of the property.
So you're saying perpendicular to the property or parallel to the property line, 3 to 5 feet, and then cutting in where the drainage is, right?
Yeah, so basically, this is with my mouse. So then 3 feet in, and then it goes. I think they proposed it to the back like that.
Okay, I'll second that.
So it's off the line. It's avoiding the whole drainage ditch area, anyways, and I think it'll just keep it kind of cleaner and more in line with our guidelines. So that's the motion. Dan, did you second it?
Yes.
All right. So there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I don't know, staff, if you want to screenshot kind of that little drawing that I did. That way you guys kind of have a record of it. Any further discussion on it? All right, so let's take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes 6-0. All right, thank you, sir. Good luck with your pool. All right. Did a representative from 11514 Hickory Cluster
Yes.
join?
Yes.
I believe the homeowner has been unmuted.
Great. the applicant here for 11514 Hickory Cluster. I believe you're unmuted now. Hi, ma'am. Welcome back. Is she unmuted?
Yes.
Maybe turn up. I can't hear her. Ma'am, do you know if your microphone's working?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. There you are. Hi, Bruna.
Okay. Hi. How are you?
Good. So walk us through what your new plan is.
Michael, is there any way you could get the drawing off the screen? I cannot do it on my
Oh,
end.
sorry.
No problem.
You don't like that beautiful drawing?
It just doesn't match.
There we go.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay. All right, Bruna, go ahead and describe what you're doing.
Actually, for us, it's the second time. So everything is already explained. We're just gonna lower down the door and do same thing like was before. Just is gonna be sliding window.
Sliding window. So option A is your preferred option.
We don't have other choice.
Okay. All right. I will go around and see if anyone has any questions for you, okay? Or wait, we have affected parties on this, staff?
So we do. It's the cluster and the cluster president, secretary.
Who will be talking for him?
Yes. Give me 1 second there. Yeah, I don't see them on the call either. I
hope they didn't get it.
Yeah, no, they confirmed their attendance, but they are not here. But they were in favor of the corrections.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to find can you find their affected party statement so we could just read it out loud? I couldn't find I saw the old one, but I didn't see.
They didn't provide an updated affected party statement.
Okay. All right. Well, then we will go around. Hopefully they didn't get off because they thought we were deferring this to the next month. But Dan, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No, not for the applicant.
Okay. Bruce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Just clarification that both window types that you're proposing are available. Is that my understanding? Is that you're proposing either one, but prefer the slider? Is that correct?
Bruna?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she prefers the slider from what.
Okay, but
yeah,
but it's not. There's no availability issues. That's what I was trying to understand.
No, I think they're looking to have an option to have the operability of it.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Scott, did you have any questions? Scott, I don't even see Scott on anymore. All right. Mike, did you have any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Jim, did you have any questions?
No.
The only question I had, staff, so the cluster, this window that they're proposing, I'm assuming it meets their cluster guidelines for window replacements.
So their cluster guideline is on page, I'm sorry, give me 1 second, let me bring it back up. For the original one is on page 8. Those
Yeah,
are
see, it says the face width sideline, which includes both visible perimeter frame, shall be no more than 2.5 inches at the head and sill of either jamb. And so these meet that requirement. Is basically what I'm asking. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So then I have no problem with option A. I think it's there's sliders in this community. So, and the cluster doesn't have an affected partiness on it. So they're very thorough and kind of reviewing it. So Is there a motion that anyone would like to make on the application?
I'd
I'll
move.
move to approve option A.
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All right. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? We'll put Scott down as an abstention since he's no longer on, and the motion passes. All right. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Do we have anything else? Nope. That's it.
That is it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Right. Thank
Have a
you,
good
guys.
night.
Thank you, staff. Happy New Year to
Good night.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye. See you guys.